My fiancée slept with my cousin while I planned our wedding and paid every bill, so I canceled everything and disappeared, leaving her broken inside. I'm a 28-year-old guy who has always believed that providing for the people you love is the purest form of commitment. I met her at a time when life seemed like it had cornered her. She was juggling overdue bills, a part-time job that barely covered rent, and the constant weight of student loans. Helping her felt natural, like an instinct I didn't question, because that's how I was raised: responsible, dependable, the one everyone could count on. From the start, I found myself quietly covering rent, groceries, utilities, even little luxuries she shouldn't have had to go without: movie nights, small gifts, dinner deliveries. It never felt like a burden. It felt like love. Her gratitude was immediate, almost intoxicating. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said more times than I could count, eyes wide and vulnerable, as if the world itself had let her down until I showed up. Every thank you, every smile, every soft squeeze of my hand felt like proof that my sacrifices were building something lasting, something real. I began imagining our future together, our wedding, a home of our own, evenings spent laughing over dinner we didn't have to skimp on. I told myself that love required effort, that caring meant giving until it hurt a little, and maybe even hurting a lot. Still, there were cracks I ignored, small shadows that didn't quite sit right. She would fidget when my family praised simple dinners I'd cooked or laughed nervously at the modest apartment I'd worked so hard to maintain. She didn't say much, just subtle gestures, a forced smile, a glance away, but my heart tried to explain them away as insecurity, stress, nothing I should worry about. I convinced myself love could fix anything, that devotion was enough. But deep down, even in those first months of building her life alongside mine, there was a faint, nagging chill, like the air before a storm. I didn't realize then that the love I thought I was nurturing would soon be tested in a way I never imagined. Planning our wedding felt like the next step in proving my love. I took it all on, finding venues, booking caterers, organizing photographers, even making spreadsheets for guest lists and timelines. Every detail, every expense, I handled myself, because I wanted her to enjoy this without stress, without ever having to worry about money. I paid for the deposit on the hall, the flowers, the small extras she casually mentioned she always dreamed of. At the time, seeing her eyes light up when I told her we could afford something small but perfect made the exhaustion worth it. I told myself this was love, real, tangible love, expressed in dollars and planning and sleepless nights. She praised me constantly, sometimes in whispers during late-night calls, sometimes with shy smiles when no one else was watching. "You're amazing. I don't know how I got so lucky," she said one evening, brushing her hair behind her ear, and I believed it completely. I even convinced myself that the little nervous gestures she made around my family, hesitant laughter, glances at their modest apartment, subtle sighs when she saw how simple our life was, were signs of insecurity, nothing more. I wanted to protect her, shield her from embarrassment, and make everything perfect. But cracks began to form in ways I didn't immediately notice. She started disappearing for longer stretches during the weekends, sometimes with vague excuses. "Just catching up with an old friend," she'd say, her tone clipped, eyes avoiding mine. I wanted to trust her, because that's what I had always done. Believe the person you love even when there's a whisper of doubt. Still, I poured myself into planning, into covering every expense, into making everything right. I didn't yet realize that my unwavering devotion and her constant praise were setting the stage for something I couldn't control. Something that would shatter everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and loyalty. And in the back of my mind, a faint unease lingered, like a shadow stretching across an otherwise bright room, waiting to pounce. I've always trusted my cousin like a brother, so when he started popping up more during family gatherings, I didn't think much of it. He and my fiancée seemed friendly at first, laughing at inside jokes, exchanging casual texts I assumed were harmless. I never imagined those moments would carry a weight I couldn't have foreseen, a tension that would later cut me to the core. I trusted them both completely, so I ignored the tiny hints that something wasn't right. Her whispered giggles over texts when I was around, the way she leaned slightly closer to him during dinners, small, almost imperceptible things I told myself were innocent. Meanwhile, I kept juggling everything: work, bills, wedding planning. making sure nothing fell through the cracks. Every day, I sacrificed a little more of myself, convincing myself that love required this level of commitment. I covered her rent, groceries, even little indulgences she never asked for, but I wanted to give. She would beam at me. "You're so incredible. I don't know how anyone would ever measure up to you." And my chest swelled with pride. I felt like a man building a future, brick by brick, each sacrifice cementing our bond. But then came the subtle shifts I couldn't ignore. She started sending me shorter messages, taking longer to respond, always guarded when I asked what she was doing. I noticed her glancing at her phone, smiling at something, and quickly putting it away when I looked. Something in her energy was off. Her warmth felt calculated, rehearsed, as if she were hiding a part of herself I wasn't supposed to see. I tried to push the thought away, telling myself I was being paranoid. But the air was heavy with tension, and the familiar feeling of unease from months ago started creeping back. I had no idea then how much of my trust was about to be shattered, or how blind I had been to the cracks widening in my world. And yet, I carried on, believing love could cover even the faintest shadows. The cracks became impossible to ignore as weeks passed. She started avoiding family dinners I organized, slipping out early or pretending she had errands. I'd catch her laughing at messages on her phone she quickly hid, her eyes flicking toward my cousin more often than they ever did toward me. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe it was stress, maybe wedding planning was getting to her. But the feeling in my gut refused to let me ignore it. It was the kind of tension that makes your chest tighten, the silence in a room that screams something is wrong. I noticed subtle changes in how she spoke to me too. When I mentioned a simple expense, flowers for the table or a small gift, I'd see that micro flinch, that hesitation in her eyes, like she was hiding her opinion or judgment. "It's fine," she'd say softly, but the word didn't sit right. My mind raced through possibilities, but every time doubt crept in, I pushed it away with reminders of all the times she said, "You're amazing. I don't know what I'd do without you." I wanted to trust her. I needed to. Yet, at home, the apartment that once felt warm and full of laughter started to feel heavy, quiet, almost suffocating. The air smelled faintly of the dinners I cooked alone, the faint tang of coffee I made for two but drank by myself. I could feel the emotional distance growing between us, a chasm I didn't know how to bridge. One evening, I found her lingering on the balcony late at night, whispering into her phone, laughing softly, a sound meant to be private. I froze, my heart hammering, realizing there was a part of her life I wasn't allowed in. And at that moment, a fear I had buried deep inside started clawing its way up. I had been blind to the warning signs, and I was about to pay the price. I never imagined the day would come when my world would collapse in a single, terrible moment. I was going through some shared files on our cloud account, just routine, making sure wedding receipts and schedules were organized, and stumbled across messages that froze me. My fiancé and my cousin. Explicit, intimate, full of words no one who claimed to love me should ever exchange. My stomach dropped, my hands shook, and for a long moment I couldn't breathe. The realization hit like a punch I hadn't seen coming. The two people I trusted most were betraying me together, right under my nose. I replayed the last months in my head. The disappearing weekends, the secret smiles, the late-night whispers. Every rationalization I had whispered to myself, every excuse I had clung to, shattered into jagged pieces. I felt like I was staring at a version of reality that was both painfully real and cruelly unreal. I remember sitting on the floor, staring at the screen, muttering, No, this can't be real." But it was. Every word, every line, every lewd joke and admission, impossible to ignore. I confronted her that night. My voice was low, trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. What is this?" I asked, holding my phone out like a weapon. She froze, eyes darting to my cousin's messages, then back to me, trying to form a defense. "It doesn't mean anything. We were just talking," she stammered. I could feel my heart shattering all over again as the words fell flat, as meaningless as a hollow echo. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial too. Every bill I had paid, every effort I'd made to make her life easier, every little indulgence I bought her, had been taken for granted while she was betraying me. I sat in silence afterward, numb, staring at the ceiling. My trust was gone, My love was weaponized against me, and the world I had built with hope and care had crumbled in an instant. And yet, even in that pain, a spark of something else ignited, something that would soon change everything. I don't even remember getting through that night. I remember lying on the floor of our apartment, staring at the ceiling, hands trembling, heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. Everything I had believed in, trust, love, loyalty, was gone. The warmth I had felt in her presence, the excitement of planning a life together, the pride in providing for someone I loved, they were all lies now, illusions I had built with my own two hands. My chest ached, my throat burned, and for hours I just let the tears fall, silent and uncontrollable. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every little sound, the hum of the fridge, the distant chatter from the street below, even the ticking of the clock, felt magnified, a reminder of the life I had poured into someone who never cared. I replayed every conversation, every gesture, every whispered compliment in my head, wondering when I had missed the warning signs. The laughter I had once cherished now echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. Friends called, asking if I was okay, but I couldn't explain it. How could I? It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a complete demolition of my trust, my effort, my heart. I felt hollow, like someone had reached inside me and taken the part that believed in love, leaving behind only pain and a gnawing emptiness. Even my cousin's face flashed in my mind, the same one I had hugged at family gatherings, laughed with, considered family. And now? Now I couldn't look at him without seeing the betrayal carved into every smirk and message. I remember whispering to myself in the dark, I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if I want to. The apartment felt colder than ever, the silence unbearable, and I realized in that moment that my life as I knew it had ended. But somewhere deep, beneath the ache, a resolve began to form, a need to take control, to reclaim what had been stolen. I spent the next few days in silence, moving through our apartment like a ghost. Every object, every detail I had lovingly arranged for our life together now felt like evidence of a life that had been stolen from me. I realized that confronting her or my cousin directly might only give them more power over me, or worse, give them satisfaction. So I started planning in silence, meticulously, calculating every step to reclaim control. I canceled the wedding deposits quietly, emailed vendors, and stopped any further payments. I didn't call her, didn't warn her, just methodically erased my presence from the life she had been manipulating. I remember sitting at my desk late one night, surrounded by spreadsheets and receipts, feeling a strange mixture of anger and relief. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe, like the chaos wasn't entirely consuming me. Every action I took, every button I pressed, was a reclaiming of my agency, a statement that betrayal would not dictate the course of my life. I could almost hear her panic from afar, the world she relied on crumbling because she had taken my trust for granted. Even as I acted, I felt the tension gnawing at me, the knowledge that she was unaware of my exact moves, that she would soon realize the depth of her loss. It gave me a quiet, cold satisfaction to know she would feel the consequences of her choices without me needing to stoop to anger or confrontation. And yet, the apartment felt empty, the silence heavy. For weeks, I had carried the weight of betrayal alone, and though I had taken control, the emotional scars ran deep. I knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, that healing would be slow, and that my life would be different from the one I had envisioned. But for the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in months. Power, clarity, and the sense that I could finally decide my own fate. From a distance, I started watching the chaos unfold, and it was surreal. Vendors called frantically, asking why deposits hadn't cleared, why dates were being canceled. Friends texted her in confusion, some even asking if everything was okay, and she tried desperately to explain herself. I stayed quiet, observing, letting the weight of her own actions sink in without me having to utter a single word. It was almost poetic. The life she had taken for granted was now slipping through her fingers. I saw her panic intensify over the next few days. Texts turned into frantic phone calls, then voicemails begging for explanations. Please, just tell me what's happening. I don't understand, she cried at one point. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Watching her scramble, knowing that every luxury, Every comfort I had paid for had been nothing more than a stage she had exploited, gave me a quiet sense of justice. I could almost see the fear in her eyes, even from a distance, the realization that she had overstepped and now had no safety net. Her messages became desperate, manipulative, even blaming. "You're overreacting. I didn't mean anything. You're tearing this apart over nothing." But I didn't engage. Silence had become my weapon. The apartment, once filled with laughter and love, was now mine again, quiet, heavy with the echoes of betrayal, but free. I could walk through it without the tension I had carried for months, knowing that she was experiencing the full weight of what she had done. Even my cousin's reactions fueled the quiet satisfaction I felt. I could tell he had no idea how badly he had miscalculated, that his betrayal would have consequences far beyond what he imagined. And yet, beneath the satisfaction, there was a lingering sense of anticipation. Something bigger was coming, something that would solidify the consequences, leaving no room for doubt or denial. The silence was almost deafening, and I knew it wouldn't last much longer. I knew I couldn't fully move on without addressing him. My cousin, the one I trusted like a brother, had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. I called him over under the pretense of just talking things out, but inside, I felt a storm brewing. When he arrived, he tried to joke, that same easy charm he always wore, but I could see the tension in his eyes. He knew, deep down, that something was about to change. I didn't waste words. I held up my phone, showing him the messages. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I asked, my voice low, sharp, trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. He tried to laugh it off, saying, "It wasn't serious, come on." But I could see the hesitation, the panic creeping in. Every excuse he offered was flimsy, hollow, and meaningless. I laid it all out. The trust one had given him, the bond one believed we shared, the countless times I had had his back, and how he had thrown it all away for a betrayal that was both selfish and cruel. "You had no right," I said, each word slicing through the silence. "And now you'll see what it means to cross me." For the first time, I felt a surge of power, not from anger, but from control. I wasn't reacting blindly anymore. I was reclaiming my life, my dignity, my sense of justice. He finally stammered, eyes wide, realizing he had miscalculated completely. The weight of his guilt and fear was palpable, and I didn't need to do anything else. Just standing there, calm and unwavering, watching him squirm, felt like justice. Even in that moment, I knew the confrontation wasn't about satisfaction alone. It was about reclaiming my boundaries, showing that betrayal wouldn't go unpunished, and proving to myself that I was stronger than the people who tried to take advantage of me. But this was only the beginning. There was still her, and the reckoning with the woman who had broken me in ways no one else could ever understand. She finally reached out, panicked, frantic, like a storm that had nowhere to go. Her texts were nonstop. "Please, just talk to me. I can explain everything. I didn't mean for this to happen." I didn't respond. I let her scramble, let her panic, and for once, I wasn't the one on my knees begging for answers. I watched from a distance as the woman who once depended entirely on me realized the foundation of her life was gone. Every bill I had paid, every plan I had meticulously made, every ounce of trust one had given, it all disappeared like smoke in her hands. When she finally showed up at the apartment, eyes wide, desperate, I could see the shift immediately. She was no longer the charming, grateful fiancée. She was raw, exposed, panicking. I don't understand," she stammered, voice cracking. "Why? What did I do wrong?" I could feel the weight of every lie she told, every hidden smile, every secret she shared with him, pressing down in the room. I stayed calm, letting her words hang in the air, heavy and meaningless. Her panic grew, her voice rising. "I never meant to hurt you. It was just, I didn't think." I shook my head, the anger simmering beneath the surface but controlled. "You did hurt me," I said simply. "And you did it knowing exactly what you were taking from me. Your excuses don't change the truth." I watched as the reality hit her. The life she had relied on, the future she had taken for granted, was gone. Friends began to question her story. Vendors had already pulled away, and my cousin had been confronted. The woman who once wielded my devotion as a shield was now defenseless, realizing far too late that her actions had consequences. And in that silence, I felt a grim satisfaction, a cold, clear sense that justice had finally begun to settle. The story wasn't over, though. There was still the final reclaiming of my life, the full closure that would seal her regret forever. After she left, I spent hours walking through the apartment, touching things I had once associated with love and trust, and realizing none of it belonged to her anymore. I had taken back what she tried to steal, not just the life I had built, but my energy, my peace, my sense of self. I started slowly, reclaiming my finances, canceling accounts she had access to, reorganizing bills, and untangling months of manipulation. It was tedious work, but every small victory felt like a brick removed from the walls of betrayal she had built around me. For the first time in months, I felt the weight in my chest lighten, as if reclaiming control over my surroundings was healing the wounds inside. I reconnected with friends I had ignored during the chaos, people who truly supported me, who reminded me that I wasn't alone in the aftermath. I started running again, feeling my body respond to the movement, to the freedom of doing something for myself instead of someone else. The apartment smelled different too, the faint aroma of clean laundry, coffee I made just for me, sunlight streaming in, filling spaces that had felt heavy and suffocating. It was quiet, but it wasn't lonely. It was peaceful, controlled, mine. I reflected on what I had learned. Trust must be earned, and loyalty cannot be one-sided without consequence. I understood now that love shouldn't come at the cost of erasing yourself. And while the betrayal had cut deep, it also forced me to rebuild a stronger, more vigilant version of myself. There was a strange sense of satisfaction in knowing that she had no idea how completely I had reorganized my life, no idea how far I had come without her. The empowerment wasn't loud. It was steady, a quiet confidence that no one could take away from me again. And yet, even as I felt myself finally rising, I knew the final chapter, the ultimate closure and full reckoning, was still ahead. Months later, I received a message from her, short, hesitant, almost desperate. "Can we talk? Please. I need closure." My first instinct was to ignore it, to let the silence continue, but part of me wanted to witness her reckoning firsthand. I agreed to meet, not to forgive, not to reconcile, but to see the consequences of her actions play out. When she arrived, her eyes were wide, anxious, and for the first time, I saw fear instead of arrogance, panic instead of charm. She tried to explain, her words tumbling out in a jumble of excuses and justifications. I was lonely. I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I listened calmly, letting the weight of her guilt hang in the air. I didn't interrupt, didn't react with anger, because my calm was the final statement. The power had shifted. The woman who once used my love and trust as a shield was now stripped of control, exposed, facing a reality she had ignored for far too long. I watched her flounder, realizing too late that she had lost everything she had depended on: my support, my finances, my devotion. My cousin had been confronted, the wedding vendors had pulled away, and her reputation among friends and family was fractured. The life she thought she could manipulate into her hands was gone, irreversibly. I felt a sense of closure wash over me, stronger than any revenge, deeper than any satisfaction from confrontation. She was broken inside, and for the first time in months, I felt unshackled, free, and whole. The betrayal that had once left me hollow was now a catalyst for my empowerment, my independence, and my peace. I walked away that day with no words, no dramatic exit, just a quiet certainty that my life was mine again. And as I disappeared into the streets, leaving the past behind, I realized something profound. Betrayal cannot define you, but your response to it can. She regretted, spiraled, and remained trapped in the ruins she had created, while I finally lived free, unburdened, and stronger than ever.